gal áte tron deomar seo agus tro microfos Teams. Becan de chreachta na ram ha mi dúlich agus ha gú caran faun sa ma dos go glúin siúlach mi. Déanamh cíneach go bhfuil na microfón ag go bhé agus mustáisi sin iar sin an gáirliche nuasmóidestan tréoracha le fachgal úrnaí. Dach bleantain.
Lord our God, we thank you once again for this opportunity to come before a throne of grace. We thank you for this day, Lord, the health and the strength that you give us to take on the responsibilities and duties of the day, that we can put you before all things, Lord, for you are the author and finisher of our faith. We thank you, Lord, that we have the health and the strength each day when so many are cast down through illness of one kind or another. And we especially remember those who are ill this day, Lord, the many who are less fortunate than we are. We take so much from life for granted, but our health is one of these things that we take most of all for granted. Oh Lord, we pray for those who struggle this day in one way or another. We are reminded since we met as committees not so long ago of the brevity of life, the way it has impact on many. When you take away your fellow beings from the scene of time into eternity. We are reminded of those who are maybe in hospital at this time, those who are less fortunate than we are, Lord, in many ways. Teach us then, Lord, to number our days. Teach us to be diligent in the cause of Christ. We thank you for the offer that you give us in the gospel, that to believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. O Lord, we are told when we see a time of election in our land at this time, we are reminded in your word that how personal it is that we must make our own calling and election sure towards our eternal faith. We ask, Lord, that you would give wisdom to those who are standing for positions of authority, that you would give them guidance from above. O Lord, we pray for this council at this time. Remember each officer, each worker in the council, from the chief executive right down through the ranks. We remember the chair of this committee, Lord, and we thank you for his diligence over many years in this committee, the work that he is doing, Lord, and the work that each member does for their communities. We are privileged, Lord, for the representation that we are given, for those that we represent in our community. We ask now, Lord, that you would be with us in the deliberations of this day. O Lord, for a few moments that we could take our thoughts and our affections on the things that are above. We fill our minds with the things of this world, Lord, the things at times that we think are of little importance, but that we could turn to Christ and the offer of salvation that is given to us, that we would know truly what we could do with Christ, and that would be personal to each and every one of us. That we would ask this day, Lord, what are we doing with this Christ? The offer that is given to us through thy word, the author and finisher of our faith, the one who is the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, our Creator in all things. We ask now that you would be with us in the deliberations of this committee, in all that we do, and pardon us freely for many sins. Amen.
Tach bleachtain nuis. A chuniú nes go chláirich. An a daimh ysgiúdig na cuniú chuin na lennas na ar cíine. Ma ha sibh nas bail híon chomití agus fiolach do computer fa gyfer camera agus ar microphone ie. Ma ha officid na friolach do computer fa gyfer an dachwyd ma reil sibh a bíon di aas gná ficus kist. Chuin an gaine bhúil agus officid go bhfuil system féus an deomar. As mach ag an charich in a mics. Ha mic a chiatain a féu a bailsgi gúine agus bí an gár úine an stad. An óide, likas an garich is dui mic árichi a mic go dearach. Cha bhí ach dáhaig dearach am sa bí. Ma ha sé verson tiilech kist fa go bhfuil mic éid. Agus ma ha officid in a bíon di áis chórlichin olif an úrút a dhéanú. Teag piavachas a horst de bhúil a chomití. An a daimh di chláirigú is fé mi búil an teomar ágal no cíoch a chuid éisteach bó par a bhéilse. Het cuspar an núg a gáil ag déidir na cuniú agus a hilig ag an officid imimechaí agus an bhil bachór do chaach a chuniú acha. Chuinn cuiteach nar cíine go bhfuil a chuniú iad a chláire agus bí é lárach lína fála as dúi na cuniú. Cóise sin inis go gear chúndasan, chiad gear chúndas na cuniú is an ger lá fichit yn Iplin, da mhíle céad a richit agus a seoir san úndachig, bhfuil siú gúndachig. Tachbalih, dar a cusper clár a gúil. Ma ha úid ag búil an a gusper san bí ag a chlár uprach bachor gaif sen a chlárig. Vig a fémel a níos ag búil an dáver ag a bhél iad a chlárig ús sa chusper. Hier an is búil san deomar sen ían ún drástal le bhí a cuid ur microphone nóir Teams le bhí a clech an bucht an tucar live. Déanna cíneach go bhfuil sibh go inamach a díist an chusper imimechaí agus go bhfuil se bh lental an glech go mar a chaide a bhíine chuig ráine. Bhfuil duine clár a gúis, ar it me go bhfuil. Jo. Nes de dres cusper ha an gusper seo a haran a leis. Cóis ní nes go cusper a céad fisrachug mai hai Spanish dearna bheith. An ná seo tá fisrachug ina ha a dul trod hai Spanish dearna bheith agus dianatas inavers son rai dámhíle tí a líchad agus a siad únda ina císin ag an dadeicse son dámhíle céad a líchad agus bíní ion taramat caimil is an láis agus fiictí é cistún sa bí. Ian.
Thank you, Chair. The Abattoir report, the Abattoir received complimentary feedback from Quality Meat Scotland and Food Standards Scotland following the 2023 audits last year. The throughput was broadly similar to that of 2022 with a slight drop, 3% drop in sheep. Cattle and pigs were down by a higher percentage, but it's not unusual that there's a fluctuation in cattle and pig numbers and they can vary significantly from year to year. We've applied improved workforce management to lower our staffing costs, and it's proposed that the charge for 2024 increased by 15%, which is based on a 10% uplift plus a standard inflation increase of 5%, and the details can be found in Appendix 2. Happy to take any questions.
Kish, dic dynas fi. Oh. Gordon.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for the report. I have to say that I'm a little bit worried about the charges that are increasing, and I think that it's not actually going to do what it's intended to do, to raise income. It's going to actually put more people off. And I want to maybe suggest an additional recommendation, if possible. Can I read it out? That'll be okay.
Is that all right?
I've got a copy of it.
Yeah.
That a short-term member officer working group be established to which representatives of the crofting community and other interested stakeholders be invited to participate, to consider and formulate recommendations for the future provision of abattoir services, which are vital not only to the crofting community, but also to safeguard public health, as clearly charges been increased on an annual basis by some 12% above current annual inflation is not sustainable, and that the member officer working group comprise of 5 members and officers to be decided on by the Chief Executive, and that the Chief Executive be authorised to appoint representatives from the crofting community and other interested stakeholders. So basically it's trying to consolidate and inform of our situation and bring people with us, so that we're all in the same.
The Senator is the who is this bar I could Gordon. And I'll say there to be.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. All abattoir services.
David.
Thank you, Chair. I think what we have to also bear in mind is that at the moment the abattoir runs at a significant loss that's actually borne by municipal services budgets. The abattoir doesn't have a budget per se. The budget is based on the income that we would need to break even. What was agreed as part of budget savings back in 2018 was that we would increase the charges gradually, not all in the one go, but gradually until we reached the point where the service costs were being met by income. I'm quite happy to involve a member officer working group to look at options. We have done a number of exercises with users and with various interested parties to see whether there's anything we can do, both in terms of changing the length of the opening season, looking at alternatives for different types of services like opening in the spring for pigs, but none of these have really made any differences. The fundamental truth about the abattoir is that it is sustained by throughput of sheep. We have roughly the same number of sheep going through the abattoir. It has gone down, but you have to bear in mind that the total number of sheep in the Outer Hebrides has actually pretty close to halved in recent times. So there is. I'm always in favour of looking at options to try and do something better, but there aren't an awful lot of easy solutions or even hard solutions that could make this work in a better way, other than doing what we're doing to make it more efficient in terms of use of staff, use of the service itself. We don't get any demand over and above the opening season. We opened a week earlier last year to see whether that improved throughput, and that week was very, very quiet. So I think we have to be realistic about how many animals are coming through the abattoir, and also there's probably more of an expectation now that people who are using the abattoir are wanting to have safe access to properly assessed meat for their use, and many of them are sold on either to butchers or just direct from the supplier. As I said, I'm quite happy to engage and set up the sort of group you're talking about, Councillor Murray, but I think we also have to bear in mind that this is funding that's required to make the abattoir sustainable going forward, rather than just have it being an increasing burden.
Gordon,
I'm really grateful for the officer. I think if he's accepting that, that's fine. All I want to do is assist the department and the abattoir and bring everyone together so everyone knows the circumstances and where we're at. And the alternative of the abattoir closing would be a disaster. So we need support from everybody. So I'd be happy if the officer would take it on, and I'm delighted if that's the case.
Well, he should take
We'll pass the.
Ian Archie.
I'm addiction quest. According to China, Habarch nu abattoir can still in year. Agus Lutelium should coin that Miss Union is a gas a chain witches, but Kadak in coited in the ice plants, Kaharis and ice plant to Barry. Agus a summer horse in the primary industry, second. As I seen Hertha female coited this no abattoirs.
Jag har på en nacken jag delicate i primary industry så drar så men så kan jag Gordon Kate
well I fish some I'm assuming Kadak in coit in the abattoirs uluk. Agus Kadak in coit is the ice plants I can now. She no can triplet in the hound. Agus famous in John's coit or a dog, but I cannot get it all the rest. Have you down?
Right, I'm all like a grundhåller shit. Hennig.
Tapalaishe, Harriche, agus Tapala Gadaibi, agus Guy Norman, Shone Naish Shaw. Hamsuk Mahorgan vi gema mohol, gewel kusin, gemataraf, kan een taspati aan de stornwag, harishan en blion nog meedig, le aduun, de stok, de shias, pthisen de saarte, gafan in de marakitjen, hashin tot buai, en de haduun had al tronne taspati. Gaan jelsin giori gol van een jaar moet je daar van een gaai dat een taspati akaskaas, je gewoon ri, wat je nu kaul, agus hafis am gro, na de wegen wat al tro taspati arku tone smo, na wat al tro taspati stornwag, kun je gro parach tot 300 miljoen, na ik 300 aan de koopelen giek aan de stornwag, maar is een miljoen nog maar jere gashia miele peeg marst, waar agus in taspati narku, schai unnerichet miele keuren waar agan, ga je zien maar agach Corus da miele keuren, corus kiat peeg marst. Nische na hou tot nu kommen atter na houden als je behoorlijk wie tankel geweld te spati akin. Gaan ik dingen in je jury fenken, plezier dol naartes en roetse mee. Ach femishing smeunig me jeen. Maar een hel en te spati go wie janu araiket ma go wie janu kaul moor blionen jij blionen ganjela go wie akin. Agus sinne jemes deunje kuinig me jeen. Am ik golish roet ach holige morgen gra maar een boeien oproch. Van show aan mas ronglasik sloag akin aan de davienlis va boeien oproch de of ik aan de koele ham zo groot koele hier na gaet agus va kujoch loch klach in van budgetten agus voor boeien en asasen naachos wat de konjoch ham ze menjoch mas faskelingen thuis party agus toch wat doen ha shows en tafel na 3 agus va ma femol agus va noorsen wat tiksje scharig deunje de natuurlijk is een agus na dolan haronne gole ach am ik faastje na show agus femishing vi joch mogol man koskischen agus man hel de please han ding man hoort me han ding in je die feken please tol narte ach na femi singe vi femi de please tol narte gumi ors nog son nache gamal to
Tapla te chuig Johnny.
Tapla na krach. Chydyn sy'n ffarti edd y mwg a sio, pan sy'n bydd siawtyn gan y croet yn y gwrs yn piach yn ei rwtyn yn y mae ein. Stoc yn eich sy'n gan nech o gwni yn gyfer sy'n ys yn dasg a sio, ach bydd yma siawtyn ys y chwys agos gymig dyn y cwad ys y ddysg. Ha cydrymach cymylus nesbadi dog ydych ffysgyd. Ach haes ag dyn y gwir cwysyn gyfer pysyn dol nard, ys y hwle doi, ys y hwle, hwle dy hawsys sy'n y pysyn dol nard. Ach Stoch gymryd doi yn Eilean edd y sio i anu, agos na mi gymwg y cwad y sio bydd dyn y riorit gyfer sy'n fiach yn i dyn rwyd yn cael. Stoch yn eich sy'n gynnych ag unig ach biach yn fiach yn cael.
Tapla Johnny Ian.
Thank you, Chair. And regarding Cackham's Hamas, I mean, I fully understand how important this service is here, even though we haven't got it down and used. But I find myself thinking that in the last series, we upped care charges by 50% nearly to bring them to full cost recovery. And yet we're only talking 10% here and not actually at full cost recovery. So I would fully support the 10% or even more.
Tapla Ian. Am I thinking Callum Eilean, Callum?
Thanks, Chair. Are you hearing me?
Am I get Loindal, how?
Oh, smash it. Well, first of all, let me commiserate you and your misery this morning with that cold. But I fully endorse what's been said already. May I first of all say the service that has been provided is exceptional. To be quite honest, the officers who are leading this here today are doing a wonderful job, as are the workers in the abattoir. As a user of the abattoir, I think the service is exceptional, and I have no problem with an increase in cost. Although I know that at 7.9 in the report, it's mentioned there that there could be a negative impact on throughput if we keep on increasing the costs, because I know that a lot of crofters have been speaking to me in the last number of months and even the last year saying that the costs can be a wee bit prohibitive. But anyway, we are met with what we're met with. Question that I have here, in number 2.1, it says there that Stornoway Abattoir is a non-statutory service. Is there any chance, or would there be any problem in making it a statutory service? Would that help us in any way?
David?
I don't think we can make something statutory just for the sake of it. I think it is the only local authority operated abattoir in the UK, never mind Scotland. And there is no obligation on any local authority to provide an abattoir. If it was statutory, yes. If there was a legal duty on the provision of an abattoir, then yes, we would have to put funding aside. But it just competes with all the other non-statutory services. And I think the point about increasing costs potentially affecting throughput. I mean, that's why it says in that paragraph that a gradual increase above inflation, rather than applying full cost recovery right away, is why this has been set up the way it has to. And it is a bit of a it's a bit of a challenge when other external costs are increasing, even higher than the 15% that we're looking at. But we are trying to manage that and make sure that we're passing on as little of the additional costs as we can to the customers on a gradual basis. I think it's important. We're just looking to break even on this service. We're not looking to generate profit. So it will take a few years, even at 10% increase.
Yes,
David, I fully understand that. We are an exceptional in that we are an island community, and we are a crofting community, and we do depend a lot of the crofting. Even you've seen the numbers. Some people have mentioned already that the numbers have gone quite down, but if you look at them, they haven't really. They're only gone down in relation to sheep. They're staying the same. It's regarding cows and cattle. It's the same as pigs. So we're maintaining a good service to the islands, and I would say that in that sense we're an exceptional circumstance. So I would say that this, if anything, I've said it before at some meetings, that we should depend on funding from this, and what funding we can get, whether it's from the Crown Estate or whatever. We should be putting in funding into a service that does a good service for a crofting community, and it's got an impact upon our communities. But so saying that, I thank David and his team for the fact that we can talk to them. I know what Gordon Murray is proposing is a good idea of progressing matters. But the team that David is leading, they are open. I've discussed a lot of times with them, so are other crofters as well. They are open to discussion, and I thank them for that. Finally, let me say that the increase actually is 13%, because inflation today is running at 2%. So we've got to be careful that it's an actually 13% rise rather than 10%. Just to bring that in, that increases the charge from 10% to 13% plus the 2% of inflation. But thanks very much for the report.
Thank you, Sean. I was just, perhaps it's a question that was asked before, but I was just wondering how these prices compare to the likes of, well, if we have any idea, how do they compare to the likes of Dingwall and these other marts?
Ian.
Thank you, Councillor. The indication we have at the moment, and we've had each and every year, is that our prices are actually lower than that of the competition. And that's not taking into account the fact you would have to travel to be able to use these other facilities. Thank you.
Okay, well, Dennis be like Kist. Right, Gordon, fut tu sit de lewe gemacht eerst.
Thank you, Chair. That a short-term member officer working group be established to which representatives of the crofting community and other interested stakeholders be invited to participate to consider and formulate recommendations for the future provision of abattoir services, which are vital not only for the crofting community, but also to safeguard public health, as clearly charge has been increased on an annual basis by some maybe 13% above current annual inflation is not sustainable, and that the member officer working group comprise of 5 members and officers to be decided on by the chief executive, and that the chief executive be authorised to appoint representatives from the crofting community and other interested stakeholders.
Wel, naar stof ik is tollichtele shit. En je moet het hoindal. He's miming.
Can you hear me now, Chair?
Ah, sin get hoindal.
Yes, that's a competent amendment, Chair. It would be, I suppose it would be helpful to know, but this is probably for the working group to decide whether the parameters are to include continued subsidy for the abattoir, or whether we are looking at a cost-effective model. But that's maybe a matter which the working group can clarify at its first meeting, because the considerations will be different depending on that question. But it's as I've said, it's a competent amendment.
Right, I'm so coaching you look tollichtele shit, Gordon. Well, shit I could show now.
Initially, it was an additional recommendation. So is it now an amendment, or is it the first two?
Additional
Recommendation, yes. So the first two are going through. Yes, so it's an additional recommendation.
Leave that, Gordon. Ah. So, well, boile kundig in de mali en ik 3 punten hun college de fach van de warok weg Gordon. Shit, I'm smoking about show na de glach ke you. Okay. But you should check it. Aye. Kun je to is de sparra on kuttig Gordon. Right, cusper Cóg Báiste Eilean, an gusper Eilean is an bechcan na chomatí fó glistanas mar Báiste Eilean. Bechgi sin an áis sanolais ach have pohor bín di na haun am fascin giga gus an bí a chomatí an a diaver. Bín I cynnech moidus is an áis gagus ficti cynnech an cynnech moidus na seo sé. Cynnig mach cynnig a do fi sy'n asg. Agus am ysg golíon seo cwtioch son. Cwtioch ag y ffega, mae gym ysg. Sieg.
Appalachia. So the report before the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee today, also known as the Harbour Board, as far as this report is concerned, is an update on the designated persons reporting, and Appendix 1 is a combination of various recommendations from various reports. There's also a report in Appendix 2, which is separate to the report and in private, which is a report on Leverborough and Stockton-East Pearse. Generally a favourable report, and actually spells out the benefits that you can have with good working relationships with local peer user groups. Appendix 1, as I said, is a summary of the outstanding recommendations of the various reports. The designated person has also met with the chair and vice chair of this committee as well to discuss these reports. So happy to take any questions on that, and also Ian McCannon is here to give any further detail. Thank you, Chair.
Well, Kish, Dick Dennis B. Line, no. Ja. Gleef aan wat boeilijk kundig in de molle in ik 3 punten hun. Ja. Nes, bunstructure, causa je wel her. Aan aske tors Comhairle is kuchen Comhairle je sameltje causa je wel her. Maar dan ga je uri e kunjune comedy se giplin. Dan wil ik keer richet. Gespini kalma kunnisch aan aske is fikti e kisten se mee.
Thank you, Chair. So the report in front of you just now, it is in relation to Balashir Causeway and some immediate concerns raised by the local community. These are covered in section 7 of the report. Also in the context of this report are resilience issues across many of our connections to communities throughout the Uists and indeed across the Western Isles. Uist has probably a wider share of causeways and interconnectivity issues that could be impacted by weather conditions, flooding. So the recommendations point towards looking at a wider picture of resilience across Uists and Barra and looking at putting together a funding package which could go to the Levelling Up Fund team, which we're due to be meeting up here this month. However, that's been put off until after the election. But the recommendations are looking at resilience across Uist and Barra, looking at the wider picture, looking at all the remote communities served by large and small causeways and bridge structures, and coming up with a resilience plan for them. So I'm happy to take any further questions on the report, Chair.
Kish, Dick Dennis B. Staffa. Oh, Ian, you're the dosha.
Thank you, Chair. It's more an observation than a question. I mean, I fully understand there are lots of kind of areas that do need attention, but Balashir in particular is a regular occurrence now. It's just about every high tide there's water over that causeway. And I think we do need to give it a bit of priority.
Appelert, Staffa.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking. It was an observation I was going to make, similar to the same. I mean, I live across that causeway and I see it every day. It's closed, and also I know the impact from working with my colleagues with the NHS and the emergency services. How many times, sometimes, where it's more or less, we'll just pull through situation, that very risky situation where, having to evacuate people in weather like that, it's really impossible. So my question, obviously, the review is going to be looking in what we need to do the whole cross Uist and Barra. But in terms of emergency, the winter will be with us soon, and we need to, I think, make a decision very. No, we can't just kick it in the long grass and just hope that a review will come in another year or whatever. I think, especially since we have the opportunity of the Levelling Up funding that's coming at the moment, so maybe we should take that opportunity and just proceed.
Chair, no, thank you for both these observations. Part of the work that which we're starting on immediately is looking at the frequency of interruptions, severity, what the impacts are to these communities, but coming back to the committee with information on actual closures, so frequencies, and looking at that across Uist and Barra, indeed across the Western Isles, looking to see what are the immediate actions we could take to, and I think the report refers as well to things that we can focus on just now, and about notifications, warnings. Very successful having the camera on the brae, and we're looking at where such cameras would be useful as well. We're looking at Balashare just now. We do have starting to get prices in for installing a camera. The two critical factors there are BT coverage and electricity supply. So when we looked at this previously for the likes of Eriskay and Berneray causeways, the costs were prohibitive in terms of getting appropriate utility connections there. It looks like there's good Wi-Fi connectivity around about Balashare, and we're just waiting for confirmation of what electricity supply would cost. So once we have this information as well, we can bring that back to committee and report on what we can do as priority and immediate actions. We're looking at resilience as a whole and how we can inform people. I think we need to manage our expectations as well about being able to raise our level of a causeway or widen a causeway at this stage. You know, that is taking us into the realms of major capital funding. But I think as far as we are just now, it's about looking at resilience, looking at notifications, looking at warnings, that type of thing. And if we can do some small improvements at some of these as well, looking at doing that. But again, this is something that we're not going to put off. We need this information for putting to the levelling up fund as an application. So this is work that's starting right now.
Okay, are we talking about levelling up fund that we already secured, the 20 million, or are we talking new application or?
No, the 20 million that's been secured, the team from UK government have been, they visited Barra and Uist recently. They've had a meeting with Columby and McKeever and receptive to such an application looking at resilience. So I'm not saying that's going to happen. And what I'm saying in this report is that we prepare something that they can consider for funding through levelling up. It's also work that we will be doing that will inform the future COLAS investment programme as well, in terms of looking at priorities. So this work is needed as a resilience piece of work across Uist and Barra anyway. And it's about maybe using this opportunity of having levelling up funding, which may be available for this type of thing.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm concerned when somebody starts saying resilience and looking at monitoring again and things like that, when the evidence, if you look in the past, the evidence is quite clear. So I'll take what you say and hopefully we'll see what comes out of it. But I would want to see how, before you put the camera, how you're going to monitor, how you're going to collect the information. Is it through, you know, the official, I don't know, the weather forecast, or you speak to the people, whatever. So, but we'll wait and see hopefully what comes out of it.
Currently, there is a weather forecasting service that people can subscribe to through SEPA, which will give flood warnings. There is one specific to Balashare, which the people of Balashare and roundabout can subscribe to. Organisations can also subscribe to this, so the likes of NHS could subscribe, so they would get weather warnings, which are based on tidal conditions, tidal surge, and wind direction. So SEPA's prediction tool will send out weather warnings or flood warnings based on these conditions. So that is there and available just now and subscribable to all in these areas. That's there. If we were to put a camera there, it would be for public visibility. So the likes of the Bry camera just now, if people are concerned with the weather conditions and they're aware of prevailing tidal and wind conditions through forecasts, they can actually see physically what's happening in real time at the causeway. So the camera is there for public use.
Ian.
Thank you, Chair. Just maybe another observation for Callum is, if the cost of putting a camera with electricity supply is an issue, there's some very good battery operated systems with solar backup out there that are used in very remote areas that work very well. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. It is something we would look at as well, but sometimes the power required for such a camera can be, some of these battery units are insufficient for them. But I mean, I've got Murdo McCritchie and I've got Colin McKeever here as well that can add some more detail on that. But these are things that we're looking at.
Right, well, Colin, that thing is something that Murdo.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The camera that currently is existing on the Barai and on the Cleesham Bar was they're quite power hungry because they are specifically used for infrared as well, lighting for nighttime vision. So some of the battery powered ones may not quite be as high quality and may not be able to see anything at night. So that's why we look at mains power and we advise for mains power in line with most of the other authorities that use these cameras throughout the UK.
Okay, thank you, Murdo. Dennis Biela? No? Right, well, bwyl y gyndych chi yn y moli yn 3 pwynt hyn. That roed yn est anas gas sy'n gynte di canach uyamach go lirikig evigach is kniaven gleeg genri aus gleeg roodjen le klaren amma aus ulochu innevis, maar er was mindichtje le piam officus so woon aus spunstructure. Ik bechkige kutjig anas le comedy policy aus Doris, waar er wel ui. Aus huisem kro kunjuak in gaan wou. Zo gaan die jakken schaar. Ik die niet zo ook huis. Gaat de heun der zo zich de huistig. Zo als je to als je dat je natuurlijk een huist. Prima halen.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, just referring to the MOUG, and this report and the next report actually went to the transportation MOUG. And just reflecting Councillor Murray's request for MOUG looking at the abattoir, we as officers find these really useful to be able to discuss things in a bit more detail with members. We did have a discussion on this report as well, where we were able to explain the type of maintenance activities that we're currently undertaking and look to expand on, but also on the requirement to keep the equipment that we use up to date. Now, some of the equipment that we have for surface dressing is nearing end of life. The velocity patcher we have as well is at the end of life. So we do need to invest in this. So at the MOUG, we were able to explain the benefit of having this equipment and the type of operations that we now undertake to fix the roads best we can. So the road mender that we have has proved very successful. That in combination with the surface dressing and the patching work that we do is what we've been using to maintain the road condition at a quality, the best quality that we can actually. We have got additional money from the last committee series for roads surfacing and maintenance, which we'll very shortly be able to share that with you as members as to where that work will be undertaken. So this report before you really is explaining a bit about our road operations, what we use, and looking for approval to invest in the equipment that we have. If there's any operational questions, again, Colin and Murdo are here to assist.
Right, well, Kishtik then is to be. Aniel, so for a wil uieke comedy a wil bwyla gundige in a molien ek 3 pwynt hyn. Ja, bluk. Kusper a hoog, feem oprug sabeltje grootjen, da wiele agus dichet. En als je ziet de conclusie dat 50 miles een ooi a vullige aan de skieden to Oostien Shalach is zo'n redelijk traffic. Die kalma kan je zich aan agus 50 kisten sebi agus wat kan ik maken in ik wou geïst te mij zo. Sugar Hallam.
Thank you, Chair. So we previously took a report to committee some time ago to implement some 20-mile-an-hour zones. This has now had a focus from Transport Scotland, Scottish Government, in looking at achieving its targets, which we're looking at most of the 30-mile-an-hour roads being taken to 20 by 2025. Now, we would intend to look at a phased approach to this and look to see how successful that would be. So within the report and within the appendix to the report, there are a number of proposals to where we would implement permanent 20-mile-an-hour. It would initially be done under a temporary traffic regulation order, which doesn't require consultation at this stage. But through the implementation and through the 18 months would be monitored as to its success. So the appendices show exactly where these 20-mile-an-hour areas would be. They shall spread of them throughout the Western Isles. So looking for members' approval for that implementation.
Keishtik Dinas be. Or Gordon.
Thanks, Chair. Just the first point is in relation to the MOUGs. I don't think I'm a member of the Transportation and Infrastructure MOUG, but it would have been good if invites are open to all members, you know, to go along and because I think some of the discussions that Mr. Mackenzie has been mentioning has been things that have been brought up by people, residents in the community in the Stornoway North. So it'd be good, that would have been helpful, some of these discussions. The other point I was going to make was that I really welcome the 20-mile-per-hour zones. Excellent, and I'm sure there'll be a success. But I want cognizance of the fact that there are narrow streets beside schools, such as Kennedy Terrace, where cars even travelling at 15 miles per hour would be seen as too quick, you know, around the area. So if there was any other options for traffic calming areas, especially around schools in these kind of narrow streets, I know that probably Stornoway Primary is probably the only one that's falls into that category with narrow streets, but even the 20-mile-per-hour zone won't allow drivers to stop suddenly in terms of children coming out of between cars, etc.
Callum, there is something in that.
It's something that we're looking at prioritising through the active travel agenda on the master plans that we have. There's no one solution for something like that. And looking around schools and looking at what other areas do, we've been doing quite a lot of monitoring around Stornoway Primary, and we've been discussing with school and parents' council, and it comes down really to behaviours of drop off and pick up, and there's a bit of education to be done there, I would say. In fact, when you're looking at any road safety issues, you would tend to look at a hierarchy of enforcement, education, then engineering. So there's an element of enforcing what you have around the areas in question. There is an element there to get out and educate people. You know, driver behaviour is something that we can't directly influence. And the last measure is seen to put in something hard and fast to stop people going at any speed. But even speed humps doesn't slow everybody down. So, you know, there's a matter of narrow streets, cars parked, there's that education of children in road safety. And I think all these things together is how you would come to a solution there. But for a hard and fast engineering solution, there is none really, other than looking at these three altogether.
Mustafa?
Thanks very much. I just want to echo, I think, what Callum just said. I think in terms of, speed humps and all this physical things, I think when you look at, I was just reading a report not so long ago in about some European countries, they're now at a extreme cost, they're taking them down, obviously because they found that they're obstructing instead of, they're not helping the traffic. I think education and awareness is the important bit. But I just want to highlight something around the school specifically. Sometimes it's the parking, because people, the narrow roads around Bayhead School, where I'm talking people park on the road, and sometimes the kids come out, and even at 20 miles an hour, that create a danger, because the narrow road, sometimes people park on the pavement or half and half, and some larger vehicles, when they park on the road, they're more or less taking the road to a single traffic. So I think that probably need to be looked at around parking areas around the school. But yeah, I totally agree. I think it's education and awareness. I think and enforcement is the only way. But yeah, I support with them. So
Gaan je lussen drijven, kun je draast. Dus hoe zou ik het gelauw?
Just sitting with you all the time.
Callum.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, I commend the officers for this report. They're doing it in a very proportionate manner. And I agree entirely with the sentiments expressed by Calla there about personal driver awareness. I always think that when I pass a 20 mile per hour thing, that I have difficulty actually in doing that speed. But I'm probably one of those that be done for 25 miles per hour in one of these places. But I think it's a very proportionate way they're doing so. And thank you for the way they're doing it. I now would ask him, he's probably so fed up over the years of me asking for a 40 miles per hour speed limit in certain areas of my ward. I would say that maybe that should be more, we should be looking at that more than we're looking at Mr. Murray's 15 miles per hour crawling pace that he's talking about. But anyway, that's another comment. Maybe I'm trying to learn. And maybe old age comes with something.
Gleva wil pyle kundig is wel 3 punje hun. Het kuspere nugen estigal na diaverek tidig na kunju agus mar sen glosisch go kuspere teich asken hasti heen agus sen son fisrachu mar kistik dinne se be. Hanich.
Tapla te garige tjige begulp kesje de kalma kolich maar een hiet kusbar na haske ha Rigol, maar je meer Palestine waar ergens na skruide gaat alle daar te hu pen display. Ka welchen ik zijn allemaal ham in mogel nische. Dat torgen de karig in de park geschön nach gelate parks, maar schon als in Kautor in was as. Springa do juran, er schon in was hunnel sonne karig in a park geschön.
Yes, thank you, convener. It's something we're looking at just now in terms of the town centre in general. The first thing we're looking at through the roads section are what legally we would need to put in place to be able to charge. So there would be a legal framework, so there'd have to be a back office system to be able to issue fixed penalty notices and to be able to collect that money and to be able to follow up on any appeals. So that's a process which in the past we found financially prohibitive.
Okay.
The arrangement we had with Police Scotland in the past was very useful in that they had all that back office system up and running. So we used their attendant and we used their system. If we to set it up on our own, there's a cost that comes with it, and that is a cost that we will report back to council. So that's one element of it. The other element of it will be manpower. So how do we approach? So if we have the systems, how then do we provide that? So again, we're looking at with municipal services to say, well, is there a way that we can have a town centre attendant that would look at possibly pavement parking, off-street parking, and an element of cleansing and looking after toilets. So we had something similar in the far and distant past where the toilet attendant was looking after Percival Square. But we're looking at that again and possibly extending. But there is a legal side to that we need to bottom out as well. With pavement parking coming into law as well, it has the same challenges for us. We don't raise enough revenue to justify having an attendant or a back office system. But I think with combining all of these, we may be able to come up with a proposal. We may also look to extend the paid parking into South Beach. But again, all these proposals will come before you as members with the financial implications and the legal implications.
Tablet gaan pekking wel Polen in Gaeltoch the fastage enforcement officers who park gaan daar zo'n zijn niet keer nog gewoon mis over in Kalajiak gaan ze dan turn houden ja gewoon mis niet was zo het matig zaar in Kalajiaks wat daar garapje kan cook manager karapje fark is nachtje jaar is gaan ze niet rotation boringen ja
Highland Council have a much bigger area and a much bigger ability to be able to recover costs. So one of the things we're looking at is see if we can piggyback onto Highland Council to see if there's a way that we could maybe use their systems. But we would have to undertake a bit of an exercise here in terms of decriminalisation ourselves for possibly the likes of double yellows, things like that. It is an option for us to follow, but we can't do it just now. We couldn't put an attendant out there just now without actually having a back office. So looking to work with Highland Council is one of the things we can do as well.
Chuna mi chynnig na mi bors tri yn coladiag gydash fer sa har park môr a sitte bors tri enforcement officer I grim met al timmich al acha met doa we sein te gaar ik en ans gaan in kanan toch staurig heen we gaan dag is het ja jongens getrangen want zo weet je nog kleef wel wat ke you wel oh wel nog een
Ik heb ook gelost dat voor de een convener maken dat schon parken gaat maar storen we de malers in je park gaat hier kallen storen we schon daar had gaan schon je misschien wat kosten schon parken maar storen we kan nog rollen dus we gaan maar hier we vinden eigenlijk dat is dus ook zijn shoron zo ze nadat de barriers weer aan wel een tolle sterk agus een tolle mag agus gemik de park en die get de mag we kost geschand als ik hier daar el kortum take dat gedien van realtors dat daar kunt die orders hier met kaartje op mijn dat tronavale
je zijn roet maar ik verstaan stjornen weg later hey
we are looking at that as a possibility as well. Again, whenever you put in systems like that, you've got to think about how does it work, how does it operate, what happens when somebody's sitting at the barrier and it doesn't raise. So the likes of the airport, you can get somebody in from the terminal quite quickly, but you know, who would you call if you're stuck behind a barrier in Stornoway? So we just have to work our way through these things. There will be considerations, but there's just there's operational things we need to think about as well. Nothing's off the table just now, and kind of appreciate any comments or any views that you yourselves have as members. We've had quite a lot of feedback came to us through police and the community safety group, and particularly in relation to the Narrows and Stornoway and how you manage traffic through there. So again, we look at the whole of the town centre and see how do we manage levels of traffic and still be able to service the businesses in Stornoway as well. So conscious that we do need to close that circle as well to make sure that we're not disadvantaging people, but again, we're keeping everybody safe.
Die hosgische hand gan Comhairle is maalga a kies kalstone we schon fim ja bikel koskes hosgen an gan Comhairle is jemisi me kwant is nie fina dat ik dat as mag on koskes nasha.
There is a significant cost to the council in leasing the parking areas. The only way we were recovering some of that money was through parking charges in the past. But that was actually going to pay for the traffic warden as well. So yes, historically we have always borne the cost of leasing the parking areas, and yes, whatever we look at in the future, we need to look at some of that cost recovery.
Okay, go ahead.
And Chair, just a comment. As someone who uses the airport nearly every day, airport barriers, they can be affected by weather and all sorts. If it's raining, for instance, sometimes it doesn't read your number plate. And I understand what Calla says about having someone available. You know, you need to buzz someone in and get them to open the barrier for you. But I don't know if that could be sort of incorporated with the bus, whoever's in the bus station or something like that. You know, I don't know. Just a comment.
I think in general we need to look at the whole thing, and all these are considerations we need to have. And as we're saying, we're looking to work with municipal services to say, okay, is there a resource there that we can base in the Stornoway Town Centre to manage that?
Johnny?
De dinge parke gedicht. Fuidir sin cód a dhíist, ha mé dhéir imime a chuúir, Stornoway dhéanú one-way man chansat. Agus bhí parking go leor an dúirsin, ha mé one-way system bhí ag an Stornoway. Ha cúpad an nimbeach bar lille fegan géaltach. Sco seanna cúpad sé Stornoway.
Sé go chalam, ha Johnny son go one way.
It is something that we've raised just now, just tentatively. It's been raised here a number of times. We took some proposals to the Stornoway Business Group. We got some feedback from there. We're looking at what the implications of the one-way system could be, and the more we look at it just now, the more we know we need to understand what the impacts will be on the other roads. At the moment, it's not really to increase parking that we were looking at one way. It was to increase space for pedestrians and cyclists. The Scottish Government have targets for reducing the number of vehicles using the roads. And I mean, that's you'll probably start to see some stuff coming out on that. How it's going to be done is a challenge, but they want people to walk and cycle more and basically use less transport. A one-way system was going to be really to give more pedestrian space and cycling space, not more parking. There was actually a view that we should have less parking available. We're looking at other ways where we can make things more acceptable to pedestrians and cyclists, and it may be not the full one-way system just now, but looking at where you can create more crossing points or more areas where pedestrians feel more safe, not just having to cross between parked cars and run across. So we're looking at the various things that we can do for that just now. But there has been quite a bit of negativity over a one-way system. So we would just want to come back to council with a proper picture on that rather than jump to something.
Jake, what did you like?
A one-way system would make it safer crossing because you only have to look one way. The extra parking will be an additional advantage. It's not necessary to create more parking, but it's working in other towns bigger than Stornoway, and it seems to have worked. It's even worked brilliantly in Talbot as well.
Yes, and as I said, we will take something back to council on that. With again, like the 20 mile an hour, we'll probably look at some kind of phased approach. We're coming back with a report that's just more, that actually gives you the implications. There are areas, though, I think, Bells Road, Inniclate Road, and Riggs Road, where the possible implementation of one-way systems there could have an immediate benefit in taking cash off payments. So again, we'll come back with reports on that.
Right, so can grow marsh get by some fistrach. You hitch in your nest and the jammer is on pechach, cusper noog. Behoort de wheel a comedy agus na hoffikel in my puidach sin jammer agus gurin is kaach a chunio aga.